About a year ago, I woke in a place I did not choose. Feeling all kinds of undead. Oscar of a story staring through my roof. I got a sword, I got a shield. Fuck me, that's a mighty crow. Oh Lord, I'm stuck in Lord Drain again. Welcome back to Humanities. I have recovered from the lurgy, or nearly, and as a special present to me, to you, to everyone, we have Tamoor Hussain, who's features editor at CBG, writer for XM UK and for Games Master, and huge Dark Souls nerd as well these days.
Hello, how are you?
Double cool, you?
Very good, very good, very good. Oh man, I'm excited to be on here. Usually I'm a listener. It's good to not present a podcast for once. I can just sit back and listen now.
Yeah, because you present the Off the Record podcast.
Yeah, the CVG Off the Record podcast. And every now and then I forget that I'm a presenter, and so I'll just sit there and everyone will look at me like, segue into something now. Oh shit, I should say something here.
I was listening the other day to the Mario Kart talk, and just sort of my smile was getting wider and wider. And I think if it had gotten any bigger than that, sort of the sides would have touched in centre and my face fallen off. I'm excited about that game.
Yeah, we've got a lot of massive Mario Kart fans. Like, that's one of the games that people just get so angry and competitive about. But I'm awful at it, and I'm always the person that maintains that it can't be played competitively. I can't take it seriously, because I'll play stuff like Counter-Strike and Street Fighter competitively, but when it comes to Mario Kart, I'm like, no, that game is a joke. Don't try and pretend like anyone's good at it. There's no skill to it. You've just played it long enough to know where to go. That's about it.
It's like rolling a dice, but you're driving a car.
Exactly.
Well, my big thing is I'm wondering how it's going to sort of compare to Sonic and All-Stars Racing Transformed, which I loved. And thought I was all right at until Paddy came around a few months ago and pretty much almost blind, other than the beta version. So kicked my arse on it. But
I've heard nothing but good things. I remember, like we said on the podcast, Chris Scullion went to see it, and there was like a couple of guys from O&M and Gav, our video guys, and they were out most of the day, and then they got back at about 4:30, 5 o'clock, and came in, and the smiles on their faces were just, they were beaming. They were so happy about what they had just played, and they were like, the excitement was bubbling up, and they couldn't wait to tell us about it. And like, there's not a lot of games that do that. You kind of, even when you play something like Titanfall preview stage, you come back and someone says, how is it? Even though it's a good game, you just go, yeah, it's pretty good. You explain it kind of very like subdued way. It's like, this is how it was, kind of, and then this happened and that happened. Rarely do you get actual joy heard in this person's voice, and the Mario Kart managed to do that. So I think, barring some sort of catastrophe, it's going to be something special, I reckon.
Yeah, it looks like they've gone all out to make a competitive racer. And all the little quirks that I've heard, like when you go anti-gravity and the wheels go up, that if you bump into another racer and those wheels connect, you get a speed boost. And even there's stuff that the American press has seen, and yet the English press hasn't, and it's like Nintendo are holding some stuff back.
Yeah. There's Nintendo have. I'm not going to say anything. I'm not going to say too much for fear of losing my job. But Nintendo
Don't do that, mate.
Yeah, Nintendo are notoriously tricky to deal with. They had quite a lot of rules in the way what we could see and how we could capture it and that kind of stuff. So yeah, the American press did get to see a lot more of it than we did. But yeah, there's a lot of information out about it out there, and it looks super cool, super cool. Even as someone who plays it on a casual level, I just can't wait to get my hands on it. It just looks like so much fun.
I'd have to say as well, like with regards to that and to Super Mario World as well, to say that there's catcalls from certain quarters about the lack of power of the Wii U, and yet they look like two of the most beautiful games I've ever seen.
I'd agree with that. I mean, I'm not the Wii U's biggest fan, admittedly. I don't really have one, but what we played at your house that time was really, really pretty. And the stuff I've seen of Mario Kart, a few screenshots been floating around the last few days, it looks really, really nice. Like, nicer than I expected.
60 frames per second, isn't it, on 1 and 2 player, and then it drops to on split screen, and then if you go to 4, it drops to 30, which is still pretty damn
good. Yeah, that's still good.
Yep, those games. I mean, they don't look. When they try to do stuff like realistic Unreal Engine style visuals, that's where they fall apart. But as long as they keep doing the kind of stylistic games that Nintendo are known for, I think they will still be the prettiest games out there. They will always be competitive. Like while other games ratchet up the realism to ridiculous levels, these guys will make games that catch the eye and kind of charm us. And that will always be their strength, and I don't think they should try and match other consoles in terms of like realism and stuff like that.
I just hope the Wii U gets the sales boost from it though, because it's a great console. But when Paddy came around here, he saw a console that he'd not seen advertised or not really seen publicised, and the press seems to.
I've not even really played with one in a shop or anything. Like there's nothing.
Yeah, I think it will definitely get a sales boost. Games like Smash Brothers and Mario Kart will give it a bit of a boost, but I think they'll never say it. But Nintendo has kind of resigned itself to the fact that the Wii U won't be a massive success for them, which isn't a problem because I mean, they've got enough cash reserves to ride it out, and the 3DS is doing exceptionally well for them. So I think they're going to focus a lot of it doesn't make sense for them to focus marketing money on the Wii U, which is so far behind that even if it goes perfectly, it still might not prove to be a success, when they could spend that money on the 3DS and kind of spend it on games that like Bravely Default, which got a surprising amount of marketing, and is a success because of it. They can take smaller, quirkier games and spend the marketing money that they ordinarily would on the Wii U on that instead, and kind of strengthen the 3DS further.
I mentioned that live action concert for Bravely Default, and it was just mental. It's on YouTube, and they've got the band that does the intros to Attack on Titan.
All right.
Like, as the band, they've got full orchestra. They've got backing singers that are all dressed up like the characters from Bravely Default. And then this little girl comes on, and they start sort of with this book and sort of looking around, and then this band kicks in, and they're phenomenal. And the orchestra cracks in as well. It's like, was this more of a success than I realised? Because this is crazy. And then it gets to a point where they do the battle theme, and a bloke from Megadeth comes on, and then the singer goes off and comes on with a guitarist as well. And at one point, they've got 4 guitarists just going bonkers in front of this orchestra. And dude from Megadeth clearly absolutely in raptures. He's really loving it. But it's absolutely insane.
Yeah, I think Bravely Default turned out to be a surprise for for Square Enix definitely, because after the success of that game, they released that statement recently where they were like, "Oh, we're going to refocus," and kind of basically then they realized that they screwed up and they should have stuck with making niche kind of JRPG type games instead of trying to take their best known franchises and water them down so they can appeal to a wider audience and action them up and stuff like that. They made the shocking revelation that they should stick to JRPGs, which are the genre that made their name. It's like, no shit, Sherlock.
This kind of such as Siege's quite nicely back into Souls, though, really, because I think that Final Fantasy's made its name over the years by taking an audience and constantly building it. And I know there's a lot to be said now for companies wanting the big success off the bat, but Demon Souls came out and sold reasonably well in Japan, but didn't get great reviews. And then word of mouth tended to push people towards it, and it started selling out in Korea and Japan and China. Then that word of mouth came over to the States and started hitting the websites over there. Then Atlas sort of seized on it. Obviously did decent money for Atlas, which is great because they can afford to bring more niche stuff over. And Namco Bandai then, once Sony weren't asked for some reason releasing it in Europe, sort of jumped in again. But then Dark Souls came out and built on that audience, and ended up selling, I think, within its first year, maybe about 2.5 million copies.
Sounds about right.
Yeah.
I think the key is they never tried to. It wasn't a kind of a strategy to build the audience. From our perspective as fans, it just feels like they've catered to their fans more than anything. Because Dark Souls 1 wasn't kind of, they didn't take Demon Souls and see like, all right, this was kind of a success and kind of a critical success at the same time. Maybe if we kind of make it easier and make it more appealing to casuals, we can grow the audience. They were like, fuck it, no, let's just do smart things and stick to what we know, make it a more interesting game, streamline it in certain aspects that make sense, and kind of tweak the mechanics. And they made a really good game, and naturally gamers picked that up and they were like, this is an awesome game, play this game. And then the sequel came out and they've done the exact same thing. They didn't cater to the wider audience, despite what it seemed like when they first announced it, when they said that, it's going to be more accessible. They built a really good game, really smart tweaks again, really smart additions and features and that kind of thing. But for the most part, I don't think there's a Dark Souls fan out there that can say this is a bad sequel, because it really isn't. If you are saying that, you're a bit crazy. But,
it's good they've taken their time each time as well. There's been a 2-3 year gap between each game. Is that roughly accurate? Would you say? Yeah, and they've not rushed out another one year on year. I think if it had come out a year later, we'd have had a totally different game, so different. But the fact they take their time and they work it out, and I was thinking about this on the way to work this morning. Metal Gear games did this as well. They tweak it and they wait and they build a good game and they just change things that make sense. And just tweak the formula to make it new but the same, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
They change it, but they make changes that make sense and work. And you may initially bounce off them. It's like, and actually that's quite smart. And you never know what you've had until you've not had it before and you've had it now. So yeah, I like they've not tried to do a big ad campaign and hey look we've partnered with Doritos for DLC. They've just made a nice game. What nice? They've made a challenging game. I wouldn't know about nice.
You got respect. I mean, publishers like Namco Bandai, who kind of gave them the room to do whatever they want. It's clear they recognize this is basically magic that they're creating, and if we try, we don't understand it. It's voodoo to us, but they know what they're doing, so just leave them to it. Most other publishers would really try and get in there and be like, do this, do that, do this, do that. But it's clear that they've even from a PR perspective, speaking to people who PR the game, they obviously they know their product, but it's clear they don't know it on a really deep level. Like you can take someone like Matt Lees, for example, who is a massive fan, and you can give him 10 minutes, 10, 15, 20 minutes with it, and then tell him to speak to us about it, and he would be able to break it down on a level that the PR people who have spent way more time with it probably aren't able to. Yeah. And that's just part of the magic of it. It's like people who know how it works and the ins and outs of it can kind of respect it on a different level.
I think it's interesting with regards to Dark Souls and the audience that was there, and obviously there's a community that kept on investigating the lore and that people were still playing the online side of things, a good couple of years after it had come out. It still seems to me sort of quite a brave decision to throw the amount of marketing money that they have at the game. Because, I mean, initially when that was it the big game trailers show in the other January, where it was still Hollywood and people, and that Dark Souls 2 trailer came on there, and everyone was like, "What? Dark Souls on sort of a game trailers type show with of that magnitude? You just expect the big guns." And I mean, I remember waking up the next morning and just seeing stuff on my Twitter like Dark Souls 2 son, Dark Souls 2, and I was like, "What?" And it just sort of there was me sort of bleary eyed, sort of sitting on the sofa, not even having made a coffee yet, just trying to focus on this trailer and just, what? This is like Christmas.
I think that's one of the. It is undoubtedly Namco Bandai's biggest franchise series. And it doesn't surprise me that they're throwing as much money as they possibly can at it. It's kind of like their big deal. Anyone who, like, we receive emails from them on a daily basis, and it's like friggin' Naruto this and JoJo's Bizarre Adventure that, and it's like most of the time you look at it and you're like, I'm a Naruto fan, and even I'm like, oh, don't need to know about this game because it's the same game as last year, and it's got an extra skin on it. But anytime a Dark Souls email comes in, you're like, oh shit, we need to scour this for any detail that we can use. It's like their big thing is Dark Souls, and I'll be very surprised. I would have been surprised if they didn't spend that kind of money, like big bucks on it. And in the future, it will pay off. I mean, it's kind of interesting. It'll be interesting to see what happens now, because I'm betting that Dark Souls 2 is way more popular than Dark Souls 1 would be. So this is kind of like the make or break moment where we see whether they're From Software are the kind of they've reached the point where they'll be left alone. If they're an Infinity Ward kind of place where let them do what they want, or if people will be like, now it's big enough that we need to start, kind of pushing it in certain directions to make ourselves kind of benefit more from it.
Well, the big elephant in the room from here is Demon Souls 2.
Oh yeah,
there's been rumours for a long time that From are doing Demon Souls 2. That Miyazaki himself, when he was interviewed and asked what he was going to do, he said, "I'm going to do something completely different." But he's a notorious troll. So, like when he said about the pendant, that it's a very RPG type thing to select in Dark Souls, the start, and he wasn't meaning there was any magical properties. He knew people would go bonkers over it, but it was just a nice RPG thing. But I think it might have been on the Daft Souls podcast a couple of weeks ago that I think they mentioned that none of the designers from Dark Souls have done Dark Souls 2. It's a completely different design team as well. So
that's impressive that they managed to have a completely different set of people and managed to knock that game out and make it as good as it is. That's impressive. I don't know. I really like the idea of another Demon Souls. It would be crazy if it was like the hardcore version of Dark Souls, which is like make it harder and even more for the crazy fans. It would be a weird subgenre of ridiculous Dark Souls games.
But this is the thing. They've had. I know a lot of people who picked up Dark Souls on 360 who didn't have PS3s, and after they'd finished it and then finished it again and got really into the lore, ended up picking up a PS3 for Demon Souls because it's like there was this star in the distance that they had to fly to. It was driving them insane. And I think the games can be different enough to stand on their own 2 feet and even compete with one another. But I hadn't really thought about the fact that of them perhaps making Demon Souls the more traditionally difficult of the two. Yeah. That way you're kind of splitting the fan base, but in a good way.
I mean, I think they could do great things on the fucking Vita, man. I would murder somebody for a Souls game on the Vita.
I spoke to the. I mean, I didn't ever write this up because it didn't seem like it'd be a massive thing, but it might be interesting for you guys. When I spoke to, was it Tanomura, Yui Tanomura, their guys, about a portable version of the game, they said they've not got one ready, and they're not looking into it. But that engine that they created, it doesn't stop them from. It won't stop them from scaling it down and putting it on the Vita if they wanted to.
Oh, God.
And I did say, like, what would it take to get this to happen? And they did the typical thing where it's like, oh, well, if fans voice their, their desire for it, we'll do it, which is what every developer says as, we don't really care what you think, we'll do it when it makes sense to us. But From Software are the kind of people that they're so in tune with their fan base that maybe if enough people voiced their concerns and said, voiced their desires and said, we want a portable one, maybe they'll do it. Who knows? They said the same thing about next gen as well. Like, if enough people this might be the one time when starting a petition for something may actually work.
Oh God! So, Occupy from.
Yeah. With PC being the lead platform, it's surely only going to be an amount of time before that PC version hits PS4 and Xbox One.
It'll be when if I had to guess, I'd reckon it's when they're done with DLC. I think they're going to take more of a crack at DLC this time, and go further. They've said that they thought about DLC earlier in the development cycle. After, was it Artorias? Was that what it was called?
Yep.
Just
that was excellent. But it was content, wasn't it?
Well, as far as I know, with all that stuff, they cut it because it wasn't working at the time that they were making, they were tying things together for Dark Souls. But then afterwards, they looked at it and basically added the finesse. They tied it all up, and for me, that was the pretty pink belt on Dark Souls.
I think with this one, it seems as if they've indicated that they've had it in their mind from the start. So I wouldn't be surprised if we get 2 or 3 decent chunks of story DLC from it, and then after that, it's all kind of tied up and put together in a next-gen package for everyone. That would be my ideal scenario for it.
I'd buy it again.
I'd buy it again.
I mean, I've got 4 copies of Dark Souls. I have 3 copies of Demon Souls. Like, I just want to give them as much money as possible.
This is it. But I know lots of people that are the same. James Carter from Kane Ritz has got like a number of different copies of it. Wasn't it? Isn't it Keza McDonald got the Japanese version of Dark Souls 2 with all the little swords and shields and stuff?
Yeah, she's recently joined Future Publishing, so she's in the office now. I see her now and then, and I'm waiting for the day when she brings it in so I can just blatantly rob her.
Rugby tackle her on the way in.
Yeah, and then just act like nothing ever happened. Like, what are you talking about? That wasn't me.
I'm wondering how From did with the Prepare to Die edition of Dark Souls, because obviously they sold Dark Souls once. They put the PC package together and they had the downloadable content there. But although America didn't get it, Europe did get the Prepare to Die edition, and I'm wondering as to whether that's cherried it enough for them to focus that heavily on DLC, or perhaps just the fact that it critically the DLC was so adored by the fan base.
I think it's going to be, they'll just assume it's the right thing to do from a business perspective as well. I mean, they're kind of, they're a very Japanese company where, like, they're kind of in the same way that Nintendo doesn't understand the internet. I get the impression that they're not quite confident about DLC. They're kind of taking baby steps and doing it as taking it slow and being careful with it. And Artorias was kind of a good indication that they know what they're doing. They know how it works and they can make it happen again. So I expect that DLC we will get way more of it and they'll be a little more confident in it, which is exciting. If Artorias is what they did when they were kind of on shaky ground, imagine the kind of thing they're going to put out when they're confident and they kind of thought about it well beforehand and designed something to fit into place in Dark Souls 2.
And hopefully it will fit as well as Artorias did, because I mean, first time I played the game was the podcast, and I played the Prepare to Die edition. And apart from the slightly awkward way of getting in there, you can't really see the joins. Like, feels like it's supposed to be there. Like
Right.
you don't feel like you're playing an extra mission on the side, like you can get with some DLC missions. Like, oh, now we're going to go do this mission over here now. Like, it felt like it made sense, and all the story plot lines. It wasn't just, oh, here's a random story about something else.
I love how obtuse it is to get into. Like, I mean, I've played Dark Souls 1 once through, and I did it on the stream, and I didn't. There's a lot of stuff that I haven't played. Like, I didn't go to Ash Lake, I didn't do Artorias, so I'm doing that stuff on the side now, kind of very slowly playing Dark Souls 2 and Dark Souls 1 at the same time, and I'm playing Dark Souls 2 on multiple platforms as well. So it's like complete overload right now, and the PC one, I should be able to get my hand on the PC one soon. So I'm going to be playing free versions of it. It's going to be mental.
This is a good time for this, actually. So Tamoor, as imagine, if you will, imagine you've been invited on a podcast by a couple of guys. You know, one of them might be ginger, one might be a brunette. Imagine that, right? This fantastical world. And imagine that one of them, due to having quite a busy life, perhaps he's planning a wedding, hasn't had much free time, and hasn't been able to watch your stream. No matter how much he wanted to, he hasn't been able to. What was your stream like? Imagine that. Explain it to that guy.
As in, what was my stream like? As in,
yeah,
how the
was it your first
yeah,
run?
it was. No, I played up to a certain point in Dark Souls 1. So I played. I think I can't remember. I did the first boss, who I'm blanking on. Is it Asylum Demon?
Yeah.
No, Asylum Demon is the one that kills you straight away, and then it's the one in the tower. The annoying friggin' up the ladder. I'm really bad with names.
The
up
Taurus
the ladder.
Demon.
The Taurus Demon. That's the one. Yeah. So I did that. And then I got sidetracked. This was when it first came out, and I played through most of Demon Souls, and I didn't complete that, but it was a series that I was well up for and really respected and kind of fascinated with. So I went into Dark Souls 1 excited, but got sidetracked, and eventually thought I really want to play this game again, but left to my own devices, I will definitely get sidetracked again. So I thought, well, what I'll do is I'll put it out there as a kind of community thing, where people can watch it, and it kind of forces me to play on a regular basis. So I'd not been past that point, but I played it from start to finish with, you know, people like CJ watching, and kind of a bunch of other people guiding me through it, and kind of guiding me in the. It was perfect because they never ruined the magic. They didn't let me see behind the curtain. It was just, they would never tell me, watch out, there's something coming behind that corner. They'd let me make the mistakes, and in the same way that I probably would have if I was playing blind. But every time kind of they realized, they'd see, all right, I'm up against the wall here, and they'd throw me a bone and give me a small tip or something. Or if they knew, like, this certain thing is so hidden and obtuse that he's probably going to run past it. It's almost like they weighed it up as if, like, he's going to run past it, but if we tell him, he'll experience something awesome. And they do stuff like that. Like, for example, climbing the in the main area, climbing up to the bird's nest.
Oh, and God, because you'd never have done that by yourself.
I would never have done that by myself, and I did that on the stream, and it was this amazing moment where I thought I'd been trolled. Like, I thought, holy shit, they just put me at the start of the game. I didn't realize, oh, there's a shortcut that get you straight back there very quickly. But I was like, from a few moments, livid, like, oh, you silly people, you've made me go right to the back start of the game now. But it was just an amazing moment where when I figured out that, oh, I can really get back there. I was like, that was awesome. You guys had some fun doing that as well, and I enjoyed experiencing that, and it's kind of like one of my lasting memories of that game. But yeah, streaming has been amazing, and it's kind of why I like playing that game. At the same, like, I'm playing, I got up to the Pursuer in Dark Souls 2, I've not been past that. I only play it on stream. I only progress in the story on stream. Otherwise, I'm grinding off stream. But recently, it's been really, really difficult to kind of stick to that schedule. Like yesterday, I went into the Pursuer battle, and I got him about halfway down the health. On stream, I was trying to parry all his moves and that kind of thing. I did pretty well.
Yeah,
but that parry, man. It wasn't even like I want to parry one move. I want to parry every single one of his sword swipes. And I managed to do it for a few minutes, and then he just mollywopped me. But this time I got through it. I spent like a lot of time grinding. Pretty much all the areas there's no enemies in there now because I've maxed out their respawns. And I went into that pursuer battle and kind of just charged at him and hit him a few times just to see what kind of my strength was at and how it was. And I got about halfway through and I was like, oh man, I really want to kill him and carry on going, but I can't do it outside of the stream. So I stopped and I basically let him kill me. And so next time we play, which is hopefully going to be tomorrow, I can just go in there and hopefully just beat him pretty easily. But it's the kind of the stream part of it is as addictive to me as playing Dark Souls itself. I get a buzz out of playing it on stream. It's a different kind of buzz than playing it alone and experiencing it in a solitary way. Because I have these group of people who are like, it's basically scholars of Dark Souls watching me and showing me the ropes and telling me these are the important things.
Yeah. I mean, it must be different though with Dark Souls 2 though, playing it on stream, because it's not been out as long. I mean, we don't know all the tricks yet. I think there's tons we haven't found yet. There's tons of stupid, sneaky ways to do stuff.
Yeah.
Like there's a trick to the pursuer fight, because I played the review copy of Dark Souls 2 about a week early. Yeah. But I had to work that out myself, and I felt like a fucking genius. I was like, I am the smartest man that has ever lived, and it worked first time, and I have no idea. I've not made it work ever since.
Yeah, I tried to do that. And
the other side of that is like I was playing that and I'd been summoned because I thought I'd practiced that boss battle before I took it on myself, and it was a while before I realised that I could get killed by other people. And so whilst you're like thinking that you're the most stupid man alive for what you're doing, I was like, why am I dead? Why is that the most stupid man alive? Why is he? So
yeah, not having kind of like an equal knowledge pool as other people is also quite interesting. I loved being kind of in the presence of people that knew everything, but at the same time, it's kind of it's fun for me now playing along and kind of finding stuff. And because I was watching Epic Name Bros videos yesterday, an early one. Because I was listening to the 8-4 Play podcast, and one of the guys on there, they're a bunch of Japanese translators. They do like a localization company in Japan, and they're quite big Dark Souls fans. And they was talking about playing along to Epic Name Bro, so looking at what he did.
Okay.
So I did that yesterday, and I thought, I'll see what it's like. So I watched his first video, and because he helped with the guide, he knows things, and he did the things betwixt area. And there's an area that I never even noticed. It's you probably saw it and were like, yeah, obviously. But I just ran past it. It's as soon as you kind of cross the bridge, if you go to the left through some shrubs, there's a troll at the top, and if you kill him, you get like a stone ring. I didn't know that was there. I just completely ran past that.
No, I missed all of that the first
Lots
time
of people do. Lots of people do that. I found it on my first run just because I was just ambling about, taking my time, and thought, oh, what's through there? And yeah, it wasn't good.
Yeah, I think I spent too much time trying to screw with the monkey dog things that were there. So after I was done with that, I was like, I'm out of here. I'm going to talk to this lady. And the same with getting Milibus ladle thing. She gives you an item, doesn't she?
Yeah, I only found out how to get that like very recently, and I'm like 50 hours in, and I've only just found out how to get it.
People are doing ladle runs though, aren't they, already?
Yeah.
I've heard the durability is like 10. Like, how?
It's an awful weapon.
I've seen people that have done, like the most patient people alive that back on the original Dark Souls spent something like 2 hours punching Artorias to kill him. And it's like, really? I don't have faith enough in my own abilities to be able to pull that off.
See, I can't engage enemies confidently with like in a low powered state, but I feel good about running away from them really effectively and running like through them really effectively.
Fooled you, idiot!
Yeah, but this was one of the things on the stream because I think when you watch Dark Souls 2, part of the joy is the voyeurism, if you will, because everybody plays it differently. Everybody's got their individual builds, and it's not like there's one developer way that's preset for you to get past a certain point. And my style generally is quite slow and cautious, usually with the shield in front of me. And as Dark Souls 2 has proved, with a bow and arrow and taking out things from great amounts of distance. But I remember when on the Dark Souls run, when Tamoor was doing Tomb of the Giants, and essentially became Run Bro, and was getting through Tomb of the Giants in about 90 seconds. And there was a part of me inside, a little kitten inside of me that was going. It was just like part of me was gripping onto my desk, just going, "I know this is a valid way of doing things, but
yeah, I didn't find this
well."
Yeah,
but
I didn't
now
find
they're
the
all
second
behind
bonfire.
you.
Yeah, there's a second. I'm told there's a second bonfire in the Tomb of Giants. I've never seen it because I know one route and it gets me to where I need to be in no time with minimal enemy engagements. The other one was the area with the lots of after you fight what's his name, the God of Darkness dude, Nito. After you fight him, there's like the pinwheel enemies. There's like a stretch of an area where you run through and it's just like the guys that roll at you and kind of stun lock
the bit
you and
just before the pinwheel fight.
yeah, I think that's where just before you enter the Tomb of the Giants. Yeah. The pinwheel fight that. Like I did that the first time and I was just like, holy shit, these enemies are crazy. I'm not gonna fight them. I'm just gonna run through them, and eventually, like second try, I've got. Have you ever seen the anime Eye Shield 21?
No.
No.
It's this anime where they get this typical anime. He's a scrawny little kid, and he's utterly useless. And they figure out that he could be amazing in an American football team because he's such a coward. That
I know the one you mean. I've seen it on. I've seen it the advertising thing on Crunchyroll.
So when he's threatened, he's kind of like, and when he's under pressure, the world slows down for him, and he can see the optimum path in between all the football players that he can escape without it. And that's what happened to me in that fight. I was running straight, and then everything slowed down. I was like, if I take this left and then run towards him, but quickly sprint in the other direction, I can bait him to run the other way. And by the end, by that second run, I'd figured out how to completely manipulate them and run through without ever engaging.
You're like Neo. Like, how do you manage it? I still, to this friggin' day, like, despise everything about the Catacombs. It's a great level, don't get me wrong. I enjoy it, but I hate doing it. I can't deal with the bone wheels. I just can't deal with them. Every single time they rip me to pieces. And like it was, so in the painted world, when you go there, and one comes out the dark, I screamed. My feet came off the floor. I was sitting on the floor. My feet rose off the floor, didn't return until I was down back to safety up the ladder with my missus sitting across the room, pissing herself at me. I was that scared.
They're scary enemies because they kind of once they've left the screen. A lot of enemies once they've left the screen, you're kind of okay as long as you keep moving forward. They don't really catch up to you. But those guys will catch up to you and then just pin you in a corner and just utterly destroy you. That's the scariest thing I found about them. So it's like when you're running, even when running through them, I spent as much time keeping an eye on my stamina because I realized if I try to do something heroic and end up with no stamina, they'll just all bum rush me and I'll be dead.
Yeah.
I think my play style is informed by World 4-2 of Demon Souls. When you can kind of run through a level and you can go one way, but there are things that will wait round a corner and will be very, very eager to sneak up behind you and kill you with one touch, and that absolutely terrified the life out of me. And I think that's probably still in the back of my mind that I'm going to run past something and it's going to walk up behind me and I will scream like all of the girls ever.
So I played through Dark Souls 1 and I never once played PvP. And
really?
Yeah, never at all. The stuff parts of that game which I have just never explored, and it's I like that because I can go back to it in a few months' time after I'm done with Dark Souls 2, and it'll still feel like it's got plenty more for me to offer, even though I've played it once and seen so many videos, and almost at all hours I'm listening to podcasts about it or something like that. But I thought I'll give it a bit of a test in Dark Souls 2. So what I did was the first time I went to the cathedral area where you fight knight, which looks kind of like Ornstein, but may not be Ornstein. And I did that on the stream, and we won that fight. And then I leveled up a bit, and then I just put my summon sign down in front of that fight. And I spent a good 4 or 5 hours just helping other people with that fight, and that was an awesome experience. It was so much fun kind of being summoned by someone else and giving them a hand and being relied on to kind of take care of business. I almost felt like the people that were watching my stream for a little while. It's like I'm teaching other people now. I'm helping other people. So yeah, that's been awesome. I definitely want to do some more of that. And then yesterday I was grinding you know the area where you climb up the ladder and then you see the pursuer drop down by the eagle.
Oh yeah,
that area, and then you blow up the wall into the shortcut area, the bonfire. So I spawned there, fast traveled there, and immediately got invaded by a red phantom. And then what I did was I just thought, you know what, I don't want to fight this guy in an enclosed area, so I'll climb up to that area, and it's kind of open. So he came, he didn't realize I was up there, so I'm watching him, and he spent ages trying to find me. So I was essentially playing hide and seek with him. So every so often he'd run into the area where you go to fight the actual pursuer, and I'd follow him down and give him a little look at me, just long enough for I'd appear just long enough for him to see me, and then sprint and back, and then climb up that ladder and just hide it there again. And he'd run around down in the area below me trying to find where I am. For some reason, he just never looked up there. I was just like, you're a very strange person. I was sending him messages because he wasn't finding me, so I just went into the players met thing, and I was sending him messages like warmer over Xbox Live. And eventually he figured out where I was, and he came up, and I thought, because you don't see the details on the armor, but he looked pretty hench, and he had loads of like kind of a big sword thing going on, and a helm that looked a bit crazy. So I thought, this guy's gonna utterly destroy me, so I'm just gonna kind of strafe around him for a little while and see what I can do. And then eventually I hit him, and it took quite a decent amount of health, and then he hit me, and it took no health whatsoever.
Really?
And I was like, you are in trouble now, buddy. Now I'm going to screw with you. So I just spent like a lot of time parrying him, using him as parry practice, and eventually just killed him and just went off on my way and sent him a message just saying in all caps, never return.
So that was one of those where we'll see you on like a Sunlight Blade video or something, like and such and such got invaded by this guy, and I'll be like, I know that is.
So now I'm kind of addicted to the trolling side of PvP.
But there's so many ways to kind of play in itself, and I always find that fascinating, whether you want to stick to the story or you want to do the PvP or PvE stuff. And I mean, I had something the other day with an area where, because I like the gestures. If somebody invades and stuff, I like to bow before a fight. It's just a courtesy. I think it's a level of, it's a gentlemanly agreement, which kind of sounds hoity-toity, but it separates us a little bit from the COD type stuff. I just think it's fun, and normally the best scrappers are those that engage in that too.
I like that you're trying to bring a little class to this horrible.
Yeah. I'm sipping my coffee through a little sherry glass now, as somebody's playing plinky planky music on a piano in the background. But I had an invasion the other day, which is fantastic, where I bowed, and the invader ran towards me while I was bowing. Stabbed me in the back and took off 3/4 of my health, and I was like, "Oh, okay, it's going to be like that, is it?" And my favourite thing at the moment, especially with 3 position slots per hand, is to go through a fight and kind of keep one of them in my back pocket. So to keep one a secret that I don't use until they think they've got the measure of me. And I was using the fire longsword and sort of backing away and sort of doing odd bits with the bow and arrow and stuff. And like I say, this guy had taken off 3/4 of my health, and I pulled him onto the stairs and bottlenecked him, and then hit Firestorm with the pyromancy glove, which took him out.
Yeah.
And it was just one of the greatest moments. I think I was just like, there can be only one. It was like a Highlander moment. So all the windows blew out of the flat and stuff.
It's essentially that moment in Counter-Strike where you agree to a knife fight and then just pull out an AWP and gun the other person down. That's not cool.
It's really good. I mean, I've not really had any. Like, I've had a few invasions so far, and a few of the Bell Bros and the Rat Bros, and the only person that has bowed so far, like, they run at you. Like, people just run at you at the minute. I've not had a really good experience. The only person who ever bowed, it was in one of the rat areas. And I won't say what the enemy is, because some of you aren't there. But you can get pulled into their world. He stood on this little rock in the middle of a big pool of, like, knee-high water. You get pulled in the water. 4 feet away is this giant thing that's, like, twice as tall as you, coming for you. So I just panicked and went straight for straight for him. Run at him, start fighting. You know, we fight a bit, and he ends up taking me out with some bullshit overpowered pyromancy crap. I don't really know what it was.
It wasn't me.
Yeah, I died, and then immediately got a message afterwards going, "Be loyal, dick." I was like, there was a giant fucking thing 4 feet away. I'm not gonna bow. And he's like, "Yeah, I guess grey spirits have great disadvantages. Whatever." I was like, "Yes, they do."
Well, it went into sort of a bit of a debate after I'd sort of bottlenecked this guy and he hadn't bowed on. This was on Twitter, and I got linked to an amazing piece of journalism by Jim Rossignol on alwaysblack.com, and it was basically something similar with him on Jedi Knight, where this guy was actually being pretty racist at the start and trying to force him into courtesy. And when he did it, this guy took out almost all of his health. And how Jim sort of identified this guy not as like a shitty player or anything, but as the bad guy, and how he chose to kind of keep his sort of gentlemanly ways and like beat this guy. It's a phenomenal piece of journalism. Loved it to pieces. I'll have to send you links to it. But obviously, there's the mechanic in the PvP whereby you can take advantage of it or not, and it's interesting to see the players that see it as an in to get the first strike in there, and those that stand back. And there was a really cool debate on it. So.
It would be really cool if From Software put some sort of item or mechanic in there to punish people that didn't kind of bow when someone else was bowing. If you had an item like that,
a hat,
yeah, like a hat or a ring, bowler hat. If you're attacked when bowing by a PvP opponent, the damage is nullified or reflected back on the attacker.
Oh, that just got visions of kind of these people arriving with like the bowler hats now. I believe you've been a naughty boy, Sonny.
Well, there's a thing in the Dark Souls 2 manual that kind of relates to this. It's like one of the first few things under just underneath the put the disc in, press the PlayStation button, turn on a controller, and it's like just a couple of little lines. One of them is like, treat other players online with respect and courtesy, or something like that. Before the controls, before anything about the game, just about, be nice, be respectful. It's like, oh, I get it, man.
That's a very Japanese thing, isn't it? Like,
yeah.
Be cool, everyone. Love and peace.
Let's all just have fun. Let's all be cool. Let's not start a war. Let's all just have some jolly cooperation.
And now demons.
So yeah, I know you said you've got sort of multiple copies of like Demons and Dark and stuff. Did you say Dark was your first, or that?
I played through most of Demon Souls.
At what point did you kind of jump into it? Was it when?
I don't want to sound like the kind of like, oh, I was there before it was cool.
Do it.
But do it.
I think I was there before it was cool.
Ooh.
I remember hearing a lot of buzz about, or not a lot of buzz, but like people were talking about this extremely hard game that was released in Japan. So I imported a Japanese copy of it, and obviously the PS3 was region free, so it didn't stop me from playing it. But obviously, as I can understand Japanese a bit, but for the most part, don't have a clue how to read it. So I gave up on that, and then the US version came out, and I grabbed that. I think. Yeah, I think I got the US version, and then the UK version came out, and I played it to death, but it was literally to death. Like, the first few areas were incredibly difficult for me, but after persevering and sticking with it, I kind of learned the language of the game, which is still paying off to this day. But I'm ashamed to admit I don't even remember how far I got, but I played it intensively for a really long time, and it was. I remember not loving it, but I remember really, really respecting it. And thinking this is amazing design, and this is kind of a one-of-a-kind, unique experience that no other game is trying to do, and kind of that was where I started with it, and that's where my fascination with it kind of started. Yeah.
So if there's one thing that that I'd be curious about now is as to how you go back to Demon's Souls after becoming really smitten with Dark, and after Dark 2, is that something that you've sort of dabbled in a little bit, or you fired it up a little bit to see how you get on, or?
I think once I'm done with
seems to give a shit.
Demon's Souls and play through all of it. It's pretty much the same thing that was stopping me from Dark Souls 1 time and other games and stuff like that. But once I've done with Dark Souls 2, I'm gonna do the thing where I juggle Dark Souls 1 properly, like doing the stuff that I missed, and along with Demon's Souls as well. It's just my younger brother's kind of. He's been toying with the idea of playing the series as well, and I've told him, let's play Demon's Souls together, and so he seems to be up for that. So that might be a way to do it, because I have seen some of parts of it. My memories of it are kind of faded right now, but I think playing along with someone else, it will be kind of replicating the experience in parts that I had with Demon's Souls on the stream, and people who played through it. I'll be able to tell him, oh yeah, this is happening here, and this is, go and do this and do that.
Cool.
But yeah,
I think an audience makes it better as well. Like I've been sitting there playing Dark 2 with the missus sitting there, and every couple of hours or so, you're pointing at the screen, going, "Look at this! Look at this lovely thing! Oh my god!" And sort of panicking together about, what are you going to do? I don't know.
Yeah, my younger brother watches the stream, and he watched me play through most of Dark Souls 1. So on one hand, having an audience, it can be good, but at the same time, like, some people might. I hate the fact that he doesn't want to play it because he's seen me play most of it. That's one of the things that puts him off of it, and it's kind of, he's reached a point in his life where his time is starting to become a kind of a precious commodity for him. So in terms of between studying for uni and playing games, he needs to be very careful in what he's playing, and Dark Souls 1 is a tough sell for him because he's seen most of it. And I've told him, look, you've seen most of it, you've seen a lot of it, but you probably don't have a single idea what's going on in the story, and because I know that because I played through the entire game and most of it was lost on me, and until I kind of dug into it and researched it after the fact. So I've told him, like, play through the game, and you pick up on these small things that you will be really rewarded for after when you research and kind of think about it.
Because I remember on Twitter, it was a day after you'd done one of the streams, and you were like, stayed up till 4 a.m. watching law stuff. I was like, what? Really? That's cool. I mean, what sort of what inspired doing that, and was there something that in particular that was on your mind that you wanted to find out more about, and you just kind of jumped across the different stuff, or?
I think it was a collection of things. Like I always, there's parts of it that I really found cool. Stuff like a character called Big Hat Logan. Like,
yeah, boy.
Why is he called that? And who is this guy? And the bit with Sif as well. Like this giant wolf. There must be more. Why is it a giant wolf? Why is it hair? Why is it protecting that thing? It's kind of for some reason I didn't. Maybe it's because my mind was distracted while I was playing the game, because I'm trying to run a stream at the same time, so you don't get to focus as much as you ordinarily would, and at the same time, you're not used to having so much narrative given through item descriptions. Like even it's an RPG trope to kind of spread out the way information about the world is given to you. You usually have to read reams of text, but even item descriptions, I skipped it. So when I started seeing bits like remembering, oh yeah, I remember this one item, like this soul from a boss had a really cool description. Maybe I should look into that. That kind of led me to mention it on the stream, and I know CJ mentioned a bunch of guys I should look out for on YouTube, and a bunch of other people that were watching were recommending like Epic Name Bro, Vati Vidya, and that kind of thing. So I thought, yeah, let's take it for a shot and see what happens. And I ended up spending far too much time. It's weird. Like it's probably the same with you guys, but it's kind of I have that personality where these kind of strange worlds fascinate me. It's why I watch anime constantly. Like so even the dumbest anime, like it's part of how did the creators come up with this thing and what have they made up and how deep does this go? So seeing like this really interconnected world that was like really well put together and has interesting characters in it. I think it's easily one of the best game worlds created.
Oh yeah, I mean, you really get a sense as well that like nothing's an afterthought in it. Like every single character has a purpose and a reason, and everything is there for. You'll find this item here, and there's always a reason for it. Like it's not so much about the what's in front of you; it's about the why.
Yeah, exactly. And some of the stories, I'm so glad that I did go into it. Some of the stories are fascinating, and it's just the Sif and Artoria story, which is one that everyone brings up. It's heartbreaking. At one point, like I didn't because I didn't play the Artoria.
It's that again. You can think, well, why are you here?
It responds to you if you've played it. Sif responds to you if you've played it, kind of sorrowfully remembering you from this thing, and also the fact that the way that you are the legend that Artorias is believed to be, or some, there's that kind of angle to it.
Rescue his legend.
Yeah, exactly, and that is like amazing to kind of weave that in, considering it's a piece of content they introduced after the kind of main game was completed. It's just so good, and I'm so glad that I went back, and I'd encourage anyone who hasn't done it to do it. It's kind of weird at the same time. Like for some reason, I haven't got tired of hearing the same stories over and over again. It's such a strange thing where I have such an economy on my time that I won't play games over and over again unless I really, really love them. And same with stuff like podcasts. There's points in podcasts where if people are discussing a new story that I've already heard or I've written up or I've heard of being discussed on another podcast, I'll skip it just so I can get through that podcast and move on to something else. But with Dark Souls, I've heard like the beginning area broken down in so many different podcasts by so many different people, and I'm still not tired of it. Like I'm listening to I forgot what it's called now, Bonfire Side Chat.
Yeah.
And going through like and re-listening to areas that I've already listened to, which is it's just a weird thing for me to do, but it's just a testament to how good that game is and how fascinating it is, because every time someone talks about it, there's a high probability that they'll mention something that another person's missed or have a different interpretation of it.
Totally.
I think that's it. It's even if there's something that spins you on to thinking in a different way, or you can stand outside your own circle and see how somebody else has processed something. I find that fascinating, but that can often then springboard you into another mindset of your own where you go, oh my god, but there's this.
It's that little fact, isn't it? It's that little fact that you hear and you go, what? Case in fucking point, Petrus.
Yeah, I hate that.
Remember that? Yeah, it was towards the very end of my run. I was just sort of chatting to Oswald, and he went, oh yes, you're drenched in sin, just like Petrus. And I was like, what?
But we can say that they've laid out this world and they've got all of this. There's so much that's not mentioned within the game, but they're quite happy for that to pass a lot of people by, and to have that much confidence in the world that you've created is incredible. And this, I think Miyazaki said something like. A world can, I'm paraphrasing now, but it's something along the lines of an interesting world can tell its story in silence.
Yeah.
And I find that amazing.
it's so anti. I mean, I might be completely wrong here, but I mean, it's so anti-Japanese design. It's like you get very few other Japanese developers, or even creators on anything like anime. Currently, there's no amount, there's no nuance or subtlety in any anime story currently on TV. There's none of it. Same with manga. I read a lot of manga. I watch a lot of anime, and no story or game world or world, sorry, fictional world has been constructed with as much delicacy and thought as this has. It's just like most of the stuff is typical anime stereotype, over the top, half naked girls fighting in robots and stupid shit like that. So it was like a breath of fresh air for a Japanese developer to come up, and it's almost, the world that they've created is almost the kind of thing that you'd expect Bethesda to do,
Yeah.
or some other Western developer.
I mean, isn't this the sort of niche where, I mean, I know games are in many respects are trying very hard to be movies now, but isn't this the sort of individuality where games can actually do something that nothing else can do? And obviously with Dark Souls you can play through it and you can just enjoy the game as it is, but to have almost these incredible fables that feel like they've been spoken about, through time, and the way that they're processed through different people, and the way that they those are then spun into their own tales, almost seem quite Robin Hood like. And it's especially the way that Dark Souls 2 then sort of picks up on it, and almost people are mentioned in oh, there was this guy and it was believed it was like this, and I find that incredible.
I especially like as well how like the NPCs you meet in the games. You'll meet Dark Souls 1 example, Sigmire, Onion Bro.
Yeah.
And you'll meet him and you'll say hello, and then it's entirely possible you'll never see him again. But if you make an effort and you go out and you look for him, like that's when it will reward you. And it's not giving you a stupid fucking quest marker going, hey, Sigmire has gone down to so-and-so. Why don't you go find him, see what he wants? Like, you're being rewarded for going out and finding it yourself, or for just, stumbling across something that you wouldn't have noticed before. And I like that they trust the player. So if they are just charging through enjoying the game for just being a shooty, stab game, fine, great, enjoy it. But the guys that want to get more out of it, they're not going to beat them over the head with it. They're going to let them go out and experience the game and experience the stories themselves, and it's very trusting of the player, and I like that.
Yeah, the level of that they've gone to in throwing away kind of design principles that have been evolved and honed over many years to what they are now, to kind of welcome and make it as easy as possible for the player, is incredible. I mean, you get stuff like developers hate creating content that no one will ever see. You don't want to be the guy in BioShock that's making this incredible, heart-wrenching, philosophical story and then putting it on a piece of paper that someone might never read. So a lot of the time, developers will put in kind of very obvious things that say, this is here, you need to see this. But Dark Souls just doesn't do that. It kind of goes against the design principles that have become best practice for designers and creators, and just is like, no, we're gonna put this incredibly important bit of information on this seemingly rubbish item that it has no purpose. But if you read it and you know enough, it's going to change your entire experience of the game, and that is an incredibly fascinating part of that experience, that game. It's just mad that they do it, and I love them that for doing it.
But in turn, isn't that why the audience has been built? Why the audience continues to grow? Because people aren't just rinsing the experience and moving on to the next game, because they're playing it and they're replaying it and they're trying to process it, and they're talking to other fans and they're trying to bring other people into the game, and they're incredibly vocal and incredibly passionate about it, rather than it just being written off and on to the next game.
Yeah, it's a lot of people talk about how Dark Souls and Demon Souls, and they remind them of the classic games of old in their difficulty and the way they kind of force you. It's essentially coin chomping design, where you die constantly. If this was an arcade, we'd all be broke. But what it reminds me of, in terms of why I think it's a classic game, is the mystery. It's like there's so much about that information that so much information in that game that you're just not given. So in the same way, like people were discussing, I don't know, something like, oh, there's a hidden boss in Street Fighter or something like that, or you can do this certain thing in this certain RPG on the SNES. We're talking about that in the same way about Dark Souls, and that's what I love about it. That's what makes it feel like a classic experience for me.
Yeah, absolutely. I know there's, with regards to like the little things that wheedle their way in. There was the stuff in the DLC in Dark Souls where you find the hidden room, and before you discover Artorias's incredibly brave act to protect the little puppy Sif, and essentially lose himself in the process.
I'm gonna cry.
Honestly, it still tears me apart. But you see the ghost of Alvina 3 times before you get to Sif, and Alvina at that point was just kind of this incredibly annoying sort of Covenant boss near the Forest Covenant, and the Forest Covenant pretty much I just considered a just hunting people down. But I then sort of had this realization one day that she's just before Sif, and essentially the Forest Covenant is there to stop people from getting to Sif, and that she's protecting the reason that Artorias laid down his shield. And at that point I was like, what?
Yeah, that's, I mean, I never thought of it that way, so
I've only just considered it that way as well. To be fair.
Yeah, that's an interesting new way to think about it, and I think that's it's so the strength of this series. It's like we will constantly be thinking about this. It's always going to be on our minds. It's annoying at times how much I think about Dark Souls. It's like it's distracting.
Did you pick up the design works?
I didn't know. I'm going to try and hunt one down online. Hopefully they're not crazy prices, but I'm sure I can get one pretty easily. But yeah, I'm looking forward to digging into those.
Yeah, because there's a big interview with Miyazaki towards the back of it, where he explains a lot of the design processes and stuff. And I've only heard tell of it from various people that have just said the interview is incredible. I haven't read it myself yet, but some of the decisions and just some of the little guides that he gave to the artists just when this world was being built were incredible. I know there was one that was mentioned on Chris Ban did a couple of Recycle Bin, like Dark Souls podcasts, talking to people and about why they love the Souls games, and they were a pleasure to listen to. They were great. But on there, they mentioned the undead dragon near the Valley of the Drakes.
Yeah.
And that the original design came back and it was very, very gory, and that Miyazaki said that he wanted the dragon to have dignity, that he wanted there to be a sadness, and you just imagine kind of this dragon sort of clinging onto the mountain as he is there and just sorrowfully passing, and that's all it is now, a creature that is rotting away, but perhaps can't die, but is this sort of fountain of sadness. I just little notes like that infuse the next time that you visit those areas, and you just think, oh my god, but that's just one little bullet point in this incredible world that they've created and sewn together seamlessly.
Yeah, it's that kind of comment that makes you feel, turns like the undead dragon. It turns it from that jump scare that, got you the first time, that gets everybody. It's like, oh, it's that difficult, awkward boss that, it's annoying, whatever. And it kind of turns into the, oh god, now I'm here. Oh, and now I'm sad. And now I think I'm a bastard. And there's so many parts of Dark Souls now where I go through thinking, I am a bastard. The whole time, you're just doing things that are actively ruining the world. And to the point where, again, I think that Lautrec might be a good guy. And I can't quite consolidate it, but I think he might be a good guy. because he's kind of accomplishing the same things that I ended up doing by picking the dark ending. So I'm just so conflicted every time I fight him now. I still have to fight him because I need Firelink back, but I never want to.
I never knew there was a dark ending.
Yeah,
for a while. I ran straight to the bonfire and I was like, yeah, bonfire.
No, I did it. I was going through the last area co-op with CJ, and we were trying to sort of hook up, and it wasn't working. Like we couldn't connect with each other, and I got invaded. I was like shit, and grabbed a couple of guys and thought, well, okay, let's do it. We're at Gwyn, let's do it. Fuck it. Went in, beat him in one go, felt really good about it, and thought, right, okay, well, I'll nip back outside, and I won't hit the bonfire yet. I'll nip outside and I'll meet up with CJ, and the ending kicks in. I'm like, oh, I think I've ended the game. Oh, sorry. But then I'm thinking back, like, the dark ending, it's kind of...
Some interesting stuff with regards to Souls with...
You're killing the curse of the undead off, possibly to start something worse, but you don't really know. Whereas the fire ending, well, the lighting the fire ending is you're prolonging it, so you're keeping the hollowing and the undead and the bonfires going, and, like... I can't do the fire ending anymore. I look at it and I can't bear myself to do it. I have to walk out the door now.
Yeah, see, the reason why I'm so eager to play Dark Souls 1 again is I ran straight to the fire and kind of prolonged the Age of Gwyn. And when I realized I had a choice, I immediately thought I would have picked the other one.
Yeah.
And now every day I think, oh man, I want to go back and leave my mark on the world the way I wanted it.
Yeah.
So I feel like I should play the game again and end it the way I would have properly done it if I'd known that there was another option.
Yeah.
And that's kind of cool as well.
Yeah, I mean, I'm glad that I found it accidentally, but I'm glad it's the one I picked because it's the one I think is the better ending of the two. And like, this is the kind of argument that can last for like 3 hours on its own.
Yeah.
It just puts me back in mind of that Gwyn fight and the fact that a bugbear of mine in a lot of not only games but films is something that I'd termed the apocalypse button. When you get like a piece of music and it's just all and yeah,
that's Sephiroth's theme there.
It was very close.
You know what I mean, though, when it's just the way that the musician sort of conveys the end of the world is just lots and lots of Latin and choirs and stuff. And I love the fact that Gwyn end, the music that plays over Gwyn is just the most lilting piano. And it's almost against the boss battle that you're expecting, and even the action that's there. But it just infuses everything with such a melancholy and a sadness, and almost then you look at Gwyn and you see is he testing you that you're going to replace him? Is he ready to die?
It's very jarring. It's definitely very jarring. You get in there and you expect the climax. You expect to be. Games have trained us to, with this escalating power level in bosses. So you expect to go in there and see this bombastic, be overwhelmed, and you are overwhelmed in terms of the combat. He can rip you to shreds very quickly. But at the same time, you get this feeling that he's not all there, and he's he is just a shell of a god now and of a man. And you get that feeling through the music and the way it's kind of a somber atmosphere there. But at the same time, he's kind of bum rushing you and kicking the shit out of you. So you get this different kind of appreciation out of it. And when you expect it to be, a more bombastic experience to, ending to the game, it's kind of a shock, but a good shock.
Yeah, maybe at that point with Gwyn at the end of sort of all of his power and bombast, there's sort of his own flame burns lower and lower, that he suddenly becomes aware of his own humanity and the bad decisions that he's made, and he's essentially the big boss, but he's a tragedy, and I love that about Demon Souls as well, that you got to the end of the game and the big boss is just this twisted, tiny, pathetic thing,
slug monster.
Yeah, that's just barreled itself into nothingness, and it's twisted into this this rotting carcass that can barely move. I love that. It seems to be going against what modern games are trying to do to thrill the player, and yet all of these decisions and the Dark Souls thing where it's almost like everyone's an arsehole and you're undoing this world. It happily goes against that, and yet has infused so many players, and people have picked up on so many characters. And
yeah.
So yeah, so what are your thoughts on Dark Souls 2 thus far in comparison to?
I'm really enjoying it. I like the tweaks that they've introduced, like being able to fast travel. I think there's some really interesting, smart decisions made. The stuff like infinite respawns, from a design perspective, it fascinates me that they wanted to kind of put a limit on. They're essentially putting a limit on grinding, but at the same time easing the frustration of having to fight all these people over and over again just to get to a certain point that you're trying to overcome. So stuff like that is really fascinating for me. And then having this other mechanic in there where you can strengthen the enemies and essentially create a new game plus mode without having to complete the game and activate new game plus. You can completely change the loot that is dropped. So that kind of stuff is is fascinating to me. I haven't dug into it properly yet, since I can't make any major decisions without without consulting my stream viewers beforehand. But I am enjoying it quite a lot. I'm still only up to the Pursuer, which is really early in the game, but still. I'm firing it up almost every night, and a lot of the time, because I've wiped out all most of the enemies, it's just wandering
outside.
It's just a nice walk simulator.
Yeah, I thought of one of my favorite things about Tomb Raider. The latest Tomb Raider came out was after you complete the game, it drops you back in the world, and I think all the enemies that you've killed are dead. And I think it might actually just wipe all the enemies but a few off, and so you can walk through that world and just enjoy it from a design perspective and really analyze it and look at it and how it's been constructed. And it's a completely different game, and I'd really like to do that for Dark Souls. Like, go through the game, completely wipe out all the enemies, so there's absolutely no kind of combat in there for you to do, and then just start at the beginning and walk through the world slowly.
Cool, I hadn't even thought about that.
That's a really good idea.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really want to do that. So that's
essentially
kind of
turn it into like Proteus.
exactly. That's why I'm spending so much time trying to eliminate all the enemies from the worlds, from each area, so I can go back at the end and put together this, a calm, enjoyable walk through Grand Lake.
I think if they'd have had that in Dark Souls 1, I think I'd have had the same thing, because I had the same sort of problem you're having, where because I was playing the game for the podcast, I'd get to the end of a part and just have to stop and have to force myself to stop, and it drove me crazy. Like, I could do one area a week, and I was like, I really want to go to the next bit, but I'm not allowed.
I think if I didn't have Diablo 3, I would probably just forge ahead and carry on playing or something like that. I'd go mental. But luckily I have enough games to play otherwise that would distract me from it.
Didn't you say you got two builds? You got a PS3 and a 360 build?
Yeah, I've got the PS3 and 360 build. The PS3 one I'm enjoying. I started with the swordsman, so I'm dual wielding swords. But man, it's risky business,
isn't it?
Yeah.
I did that in the beta, and it was there were things that when I tried it with the sort of massive sword, I was getting past those turtle guys no problem. But when I turned up with the dual swords, I was like.
Yeah, I played through something that I noticed from my own observations of my own playstyle is I'm really bad at using shields. My brain goes to dodge that. I can almost nullify damage. Like the Pursuer, if you just hold your shield up, the amount of damage he does it can be halved if you've got the right stats. And it's the same with Dark Souls 1 as well. I barely used my shield. It was kind of like a last ditch thing. If I didn't have any stamina, I'd pop it up, and I didn't realize that. I think it was when you fight the Asylum Demon, the fire version of it. that it was, how much damage you block depends on how much stamina you have.
Uh-huh.
I didn't realize that, and that kind of changed my entire perspective on it. So now I'm trying to be more playing defensively, as we say in our stream. Someone I don't know what that was all about, but I caught on. But yeah, so and trying to balance that with playing a swordsman who has no shield is kind of weird. So I think I'm gonna try and focus on one playthrough and then go back and try the swordsman in a second run. Playing them at the same time is kind of confusing me.
You'll end up not knowing where to go next and confusing yourself. I've done
Yeah.
that on freaking Dark Souls. I've played so many stupid gimmick runs that you lose track of which one you're on.
Yeah.
Doing a sword only run, and then I did my shield only run that kind of got aborted quite quickly. But every time I boot it up, you think, what the fuck was I doing? What have I beaten? Having to look through your inventory going, okay, I've got that soul, I've got that one, I haven't got Quelag yet. Right, where are we?
I really like the animations on the swordsman though. He's got some really cool, proper flourish sword swings. So I kind of every now and then I'll just fire it up just to have some fun with combat.
Oh yeah, you streamed that, didn't you? One Saturday.
Yeah, one
Saturday night.
Yeah,
I saw that.
But I mean, I was getting killed by regular enemies just purely because I was just being overly zealous with my attacks.
With you saying about the wanting to get rid of all the enemies and then walk in the world, I'm sure I heard from someone on Twitter that said that before you end the game, you can essentially still walk around in the world. You can still. It's up to you when you end the game after kind of the last boss. So
that'll be perfect.
They've given you room for that, and also the interesting sort of quirk that's itching at my mind at the minute is the fact that New Game Plus is apparently so different. That there's new enemies. That I'm sure I heard somewhere that the start of New Game Plus is harder than the last boss in Dark Souls.
Wow.
When you get to things betwixt, I was like, really?
I've heard that.
I guess it'd have to be, given that you can use the item to make everything harder.
Yeah.
If it was just that again, you'd already be trained to deal with that, I guess.
Well, I find that kind of fascinating because they've steps have been taken to make things a little easier for new players to get into things, and I think it's a gradual increase in difficulty as the game goes on. Obviously, experienced players can join Covenant of the Champions or burn bonfire aesthetics from the start, but to have this kind of super hardcore NG plus at the end, yet again, is almost something that it feels like they didn't need to do but have done for the fan base.
Yeah,
and it sounds like they've changed it enough as well. That it's not just you're playing it again, but the numbers are bigger. It's a new game.
Yeah. I think they've changed the way enemies are spawned and the types of enemies and stuff like that. But that's all I know about it now. But it would be amazing. I fully expect they've probably done some more significant things as well. I wouldn't be surprised if we went in there and were like, oh, this item we thought was useless actually has an amazing impact on New Game Plus mode. It's just the kind of thing that they would do.
Yeah. But I've particularly heard a couple of bosses, spoilers, have got spoilers in them as well now, which is good.
Oh, right.
But I'm not going to say anything because it'll ruin it.
There was something on the Giant Bomb quick look hour long at the PC version where they said that on New Game Plus actually some of the item descriptions change and become and add a little bit more to the text that you'd had previously, which again you're looking at decisions like that and thinking, really? I love the fact that you've analysed and you over-analysed and you don't appear to have over-egged the pudding.
It's almost it's reassuring because you know that it's almost that you can see them going, well, if we're gonna make another one of these, we're not gonna half-ass it. We're not gonna do it in a year. We'll take the same amount of time, 2-3 years. Let's put enough in here to keep our community kind of going for as long as possible while we work on whatever's next. So that's kind of reassuring for me. I feel like we've got a lot of game to dig into and lore to dig into, and hopefully by the time it's all been figured out and cracked open, we'll have another game to play.
that will prove all of our lore wrong.
Yeah.
And that's what I like. I like that, you can go through and, I mean, my first run of Dark 2, there was no internet, it was all offline, it was a week before the release, there was no help anywhere, so I was, putting theories together myself. And in New Game Plus, a lot of the bosses, they drop different souls at the end.
Wow. Really?
Yeah, they drop different soul items at the end with different descriptions on them. And just I've got some wild theories, and I can't wait to see if I'm right. And like you think, oh well, that could be related to that and that part there, and then I just need to go back to New Game Plus and do it again, and then I can find out if I'm right. And I'm wrong. But like it's the way that your theory on what you're seeing, and you're playing it, and all of a sudden, boom, something happens, and then everything changes. Particularly like the fight in the Blue Cathedral against the guy that could maybe possibly be Ornstein.
Right.
Like I just until that point, I sat there, I pointed at the screen and went, "What? What?" I nearly lost the fight because I wasn't paying attention because I was going, "Oh no, oh god, it's happening again."
Yeah, my first run-in with him was on stream, and there was immediately I thought I want to pause it and just I want to kind of enjoy this moment for a few minutes, but obviously you can't pause it. And
no pause button. So.
First thing he did was do his launching stinger attack into me and just utterly destroyed me. And I was like, "Yep, that's Ornstein."
Oh, it's so nostalgic.
Yeah, that point where I got in there. I sort of walked through and I was like, literally, I'm sure I was even sort of speaking at the telly like a nutter. I was just like, all right, here we go then. Oh, you're right at the back of the room. Oh, you're coming close. No. And that was the first point where I felt Dark Souls 2 kind of embraced me a bit and then pushed me away and then laughed at me on the floor.
I love that it kind
Remember this?
I love that it nails the description as well of him. It gives you just enough indication or that it might be Ornstein, but doesn't confirm it's him. It's just like, oh, he resembles a character of legend. It's like, oh, you son of a, we know it's him. It's him.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, resembles.
And it was interesting on the stream of yours the other week that just before that fight there was a message on the floor that said "Fatty?" ?
Yeah.
And I was like, if I'd have read that beforehand, I don't know kind of how I'd have gotten on, because it was just such a no moment, and it I'm sure even as I was fighting them, there was still part of me which was just boggle-eyed. I was trying to sort of retain sort of decorum and concentrate on the fight, but part of me was just like my eyes were like ping pong balls with little tiny pupils drawn on them.
But you know what I think the worst part of that fight was after you do it, trying not to excitedly go on Twitter and go, "Oh my god!"
Yeah.
Like,
that's part of the reason
me.
I went back into it and then started helping doing co-op, because I wanted to experience it again and again and again. And I like to imagine, like, there's a few people that I helped and they'd walk through the fog gate and then just stand there. They weren't doing anything. And in my mind, I'm thinking, yeah, I know what's happening there. You're overwhelmed by the awesomeness of this interaction. So I'll draw the attention away from you for a bit while you enjoy this.
I just like the thought that some people might walk through there and just gone, "Fuck me," and just drop their pad on the floor and just like, we're just welcoming being killed.
There was a guy I was trying to help that died so quickly. He was dead before I could get through the fog gate.
Yeah.
So he went through the fog gate and I was hammering the X button to go through. So it immediately put me in straight after. It started the animation to go through, and then it said, the guy's name has died or whatever. I was like, that was far too quick. How did you die that quickly? It's mad. But yeah, it's just been awesome.
Yeah, I mean, there's so much like little things you can miss, like that exact place. You know the chest outside with the ring of binding, the one that gives you the 75% health when you're hollowed.
Yeah.
Okay.
Didn't find it. Walked past it. 20 hours later, I found out where it was. I felt stupid. I'd beaten quite a few of the bosses at half health, and let me tell you, It's no fucking joke.
Yeah.
It is no joke.
Yeah, see, that's one of the benefits of the stream. They were like, I was in Majula, and they were like, you should go to this tower and get this item. It'll make things a little bit easier for you.
Yeah.
And that's all they told me. So I went there and fought and found the item, and it was like,
Yeah.
oh, this is a cool item to have. I'm glad that someone told me this is it.
Another perfect example. I don't think I found an Estus Flask shard for like 5 hours. Like you know the one in Majula. You know the one in Majula.
Yeah.
25 hours in is when I found that. And I looked at it. I was like, I just put the pad down and had a little cry.
I wasn't using them though. It's almost as if my head had written off the fact that I'd only got one at first, and I was just going through life gems like they were fruit pastels.
Oh god, I still buy them. I've still got thousands of them. Because I'm not using my Estus. I might need that for a boss. I'll just pop these very, very easy to buy life gems all the time.
So what do you make of the? I mean, it isn't all sort of rosy in the garden. That there do seem to be a lot of folks which are detractors against the new game. There's been the stuff with regards to the graphics downgrade, a number of the design decisions. Folks aren't really that keen on, like the enemy spawns being stopped, and I'm sure somebody's trying to get a petition to get those patched back in or something.
I don't understand. For the enemy spawns, it's like, what are you complaining about? Because I'm sure if you use the aesthetic, does it bring them back even after they've been?
Yeah. Resets it and resets it and ups it. Yeah.
Like, what are they complaining about then? There's literally no point to complain. You gain nothing from it. There's an item in there to give you what you want. You want the enemies to be back. There you go. For the visual stuff, I understand why people are annoyed about it, because they were sold something else at early stages. Even I remember going to see it in one of Namco Bandai's early kind of showcase things, and I think my memory might be wrong here, but I'm pretty sure I saw the version with the crazy lighting and all that, and it was being played in front of me.
I played that. Yeah, I played that version of it at
yeah.
Oh, was that
what
the
was
one
it? Play Expo. Yeah, the lighting. I remember it just like it's that the basement you go into that's got the couple of the turtles in it.
Yeah.
So you draw out Leonardo and you fight him, and then you have to light the torch to see anything, and now you can just walk in. It's just a bit gloomy. Yeah.
I remember thinking, my mind was like, oh, these guys they're capable of making an incredibly beautiful game. At one point I thought maybe they just can't make awesome looking games, like crazy looking games, and they have this kind of like quirky, kind of janky style is a thing that's necessary for them because that's all they can do. But then I saw that and I was like, no, these guys can absolutely make a absolutely stunning game if they want to. But I understand people being annoyed that they're not getting that game, but at the same time, I think the game that you do have is incredible, and if you're spending that much time focusing on the fact that it doesn't look as good as you were told it is, you're kind of missing the point. Because I mean, even if it did look that good, that's not what will be your main takeaway from it. That won't be the thing that you look back on it and say, I love this game because the lighting was incredible.
It's not as if they've done an Aliens Colonial Marines, is it?
Well,
oh yeah.
And if it came down to a meeting where they were going, well, we're not really sure that we can get the game to do everything we want to, with it looking like this level or this area and this level need more than this particular look can give us, and if we scaled it back to this, or if we did this, we've got a better frame rate, we can put more enemies in. Every day of the week, give me the game that plays better over the one that's pretty and janky, because you're building up a fan base and you're trying to service that fan base. But honest to God, I mean, even on that video that I watched last night, there was so much talk about textures. Christ, if I ever just get lost in textures as the main thing about a game, just end me. I couldn't give an arse.
My memory and fun, and when I recount why I love Dark Souls, textures and visuals are not even a factor. I could not care less about how it looks. Like, I'm sure it's perfectly competent the way it looks. It's really nice, and if I think about it, I can probably talk really, really enthusiastically about the design and that kind of thing. But it's like near the bottom of my list. I don't need it to be a mind-blowingly good look. It doesn't need to look like Crysis for me to enjoy it. Dark Souls is about so much more than visual fidelity and technical,
The strong design always overcomes that anyway. And I can still go back to Demon's Souls now, and it still takes my breath away. Whether that be even the loading screens, or the first point where you get to the Nexus and you go, oh my god.
I mean, did you know the lighting thing? I mean, did you hear the interview shortly after they, the controversy kicked up about it? Did you hear the justification for it? It wasn't really about bugs and stuff. It was to balance it. Is what I read. It was to balance it, because certain playstyles could pick up a torch. You're like a sorcerer, pick up a torch, carry on exactly as powerful as you always are, chucking out the same spells. Whereas like your sword and board guy, that's half of your playstyle gone when you've got a torch, and it was apparently just really unbalancing areas. Which is why, and if they balanced it out, that's what it was for. Fair play.
I think there's probably more to it than that, because it's not just lighting that changed. It was like, I know we just talked about textures being unimportant, but there has been quite a degradation in the fidelity of textures and how much details are in the environment beyond lighting. But I mean, I can see that being a kind of one of the factors that contribute to it. But again, like, don't complain just because you've got an outlet to complain, and that's my problem. I think a lot of people are complaining because they can. It's like we've noticed this thing, and that's the problem with, like, I find with the games industry as it is. I know we shouldn't be talking about the larger games industry, but one of the things that kind of annoys me is like, there's almost like that the audience and the people that are, readers of websites and people that consume games, there's a subset of them that feel like it's their duty, or they get an enjoyment out of bringing developers down a peg and showing publishers and developers that they're smarter and you can't pull one over on us. It's like, oh, come on, man, just enjoy the game. Like, nobody cares if you've noticed that the visual worked really hard to give you an amazing game, a bit sad. And is that really what you want from it?
But if you care that much, buy the PC version and mod it, you twat.
Yeah, go for it.
Christ, like,
the thing is, if for me, if you can look at Dark Souls 2 and you can think that the developers aren't passionate and haven't done everything they can to make that world play as well and look as because there's certain areas that in particular I just think look absolutely beautiful. Majula still takes my breath away, especially with that sort of little chime that goes over the top. It just
music.
But I mean, there are moments in the game where visually it really takes my breath away. And if you think that, if you can look at that and just sort of sneer, for me, I kind of wonder why you're playing games.
It's the atmosphere as well. It's just not it's not about just the way it looks. It's the feeling of being in there. And it's I don't think that would have changed, or it would be significantly different if the lighting was 100 times better or whatever. They're doing things that are so much beyond how pretty it looks, that to focus on just the visuals is doing the game a disservice. It's like you don't...
And that part of the visuals as well, like, that stone texture's a bit rubbish. Like, but like when you walk out of the door to Hade's Tower of Flame, like, my jaw hit the floor. Look at the pretty colours. Wow, this is a cool place. I wasn't looking at the bloody paving stones, going, oh, that's a little bit rubbish. Like, if that's the reason you're doing stuff, then don't.
I don't doubt that. I think won't be long before someone on the PC makes this incredible mod of it, and it just looks absolutely amazing. Which, I mean, just sit tight. If you're that worried about it, do something about it, or just wait for someone else to to figure it out and do something about it. But I think honestly, by the game, it looks incredible. It's an amazing achievement of a game. On CVG, we gave it a 10, and despite what people think about our website and other websites, we take giving something a 10 very seriously, and that game, I think, fully deserves it. And if you're just going to sit around and talk about how it doesn't look as good as it remembers it, honestly, you don't deserve to play it.
I think that encapsulates the chat and the new game really well.
Damn right.
Cool. So where can people find you thereafter, Tamoor?
You can visit our website, cvg.co.uk. I'm on Twitter at TamoorH, TAMOORH. Feel free to follow me and talk to me. I enjoy talking to other people on Twitter, especially if they know me from games industry stuff. Yeah, I like that kind of connection with people. And also I'm on Twitch. I stream every Thursday. I do Dark Souls on Thursdays. That's Twitch _CVG _life.
What time is that?
Usually it's about 6:30, but inevitably some major technological hiccup will delay it or something like that. Every time I try and do it, some different problem occurs. Like, oh, the Elgato's not working this week. Oh, the microphone's a bit screwed up. It's Jesus.
Twitch is down.
Don't just tune in for Dark Souls 2 or for Tamoor, but also Tamoor's cat.
My
genius. It tries to unplug the console. There was one part which was just genius where she fell asleep on his hand as he was playing.
Yeah.
Which was literally on his arm as he was playing. Tamoor's cat is essentially Alvina.
She is. There was a point where there was a boss fight. I think it was Gravelord Nito, where I came like so close to beating him, and from the corner of my eye, I noticed she was sniffing around. She was sniffing the Xbox and making her way to the power button, which on the new Xbox Slims is super sensitive.
Oh
touch.
yeah.
And I was like, oh my god!
Not just that, with the eject button as well.
Yeah. And I started stamping my foot, like you can see. I tried to kind of style it out and act cool, but if you look closely, you can see like the lower part of my body shaking furiously, and it kind of distracted her for long enough that she just came over and sniffed my foot instead. I was like, thank God. She's a living like Dark Souls troll. She's the embodiment of being trolled in that game in the real world for me.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So yeah, you can find me there.
We really appreciate you coming on because I've been on a number of those Twitch chats as well, and I've really enjoyed them. But
I appreciate you guys letting me on. I'm a fan of the podcast, so it's awesome to be here, and I appreciate that you take the time out to watch my stream every week. I know time is precious these days. Time is convoluted in our words.
Well, time is timey-wimey, as they said on Bonfire Side Chat, which is...
Yeah, it's timey-wimey. Yeah. So using your timey-wimey time to watch my streams is very much appreciated.
Well, cool, and thanks for giving us that. The plugs that you do as well, it's double appreciated.
No worries, I will continue to plug it because it's awesome.
Good man. Well, thank you very much again.
And speaking of plugs, if you are a Twin Humanities, fan, you can... tweet about us, you can like or follow us like you do on social networks and things. I don't know how you do it, like click the thumbs up button on things, I guess. If you leave reviews, maybe on iTunes, apparently that's something you can do. I mean, I don't use iTunes, so news to me, but if you do that, apparently it's good for us. So
apparently I don't think we've got enough reviews to have a rating. So that might be cool.
Can we have a rating? Can you all review us so we can have a rating?
Yeah, review them.
I've never wanted something so much in my life.
To be honest, it's such a weird thing to do. Even our podcast, CVG's podcast, it's got like 1 star or something last time I checked because no one reviews it. A lot of people listen, but no one cares about reviewing it.
Yeah. And if you do enjoy our show as well, hopefully you've by now you've seen our little teaser. Laid up with his voice all destroyed. Hopefully everyone listening has seen my wonderful video where I drew some art and sang a song. So please go watch it and validate my efforts and say my art is good, because I'm not sensitive about it, but please say it's nice.
It's nice.
Yeah. Oh, Oh, this is the best day of my life.
And it does do things like saving him sending me Christmas cards with Slayer on the front, but also a cassette tape of Rick Astley, which is that's still by the side of my computer and stares me down.
Rick Astley's album, get it right.
Was it an album?
It's a fucking album, man.
I thought it was some sort of cassette single that you found in some sort of crazy shop. Anyway,
what's the best way to rickroll someone? On cassette form via the post.
On that
note, thank you ever so much, Tamoor, for coming on. You've been a pleasure. Thank you, everyone, for listening, and we'll probably see you around.
Bye.
Bye.